Hello everyone, and welcome to our show, episode 67. Today, let's talk about something that drives everyone crazy: logins. You know the drill. You sign up for a new service, create a username and password. Then another service, another password. Pretty soon, you've got a dozen different accounts, and remembering which password goes with which service becomes a nightmare. It's a total mess, a login labyrinth. What if there was a better way? Today, we read diving deep into the concept of a unified identity, the single key that can unlock everything. It's the foundation for a much smoother and more secure digital life. So, what are we really talking about here? It boils down to a few key ideas: security, identity authentication, and something called single sign-on, or SSO. These might sound like complex tech terms, but the concepts are actually pretty simple and incredibly powerful. Security is obvious. We want to make sure only we can access our accounts. Identity authentication is the process of proving you are who you say you are. And single sign-on is the magic that lets you log in once to access multiple different services. It's the dream, right? One login to rule them all. But how does it all work without compromising our security? That's the million-dollar question we're going to answer. To make this easier to understand, let's use a metaphor. Imagine a massive logistics company with hundreds of warehouses all over the country. Each warehouse stores different, valuable goods. In the old days, to get into any warehouse, you needed a specific key for that specific location. If you were a driver who needed to visit 10 different warehouses in a day, you'd be carrying a huge, clunky keychain with 10 different keys. You'd waste time fumbling for the right one at each gate, and if you lost just one key, you'd be locked out. It's inefficient and a security risk. This is exactly like managing separate logins for every website and app we use. Now, what if this logistics company decided to modernize? They introduce a unified identity system. Think of this as a universal pass, a single keycard that is recognized and accepted by every single warehouse in their entire network. This pass proves who you are and what level of access you have. You get this pass once from a central office, and then you're set. You can just swipe it at any warehouse gate, and the system instantly verifies your identity and lets you in. That's the core idea of a unified identity. It simplifies everything. This brings us to single sign-on, or SSO. In our logistics metaphor, SSO is the experience of getting that one universal pass and then seamlessly accessing the entire network of warehouses. You go through the verification process just once, get your pass, and you're good for the day. You don't have to stop and get a new key or prove your identity again at every single location. It's a smooth, uninterrupted workflow. In the digital world, this means you log into your Google or Facebook account, and then you can access services like YouTube, Gmail, Google Drive, or even third-party apps like Spotify or Dropbox without having to enter your password again. It's all connected through that initial trusted login. So how does the system trust this universal pass? This is where a technology called JWT, or JSON Web Token, comes into play. You can think of a JWT as a high-tech, self-verifying electronic ID card. When you get your pass from the central office, it's not just a simple piece of plastic. It's a smart card containing digitally signed information about you. Your name, your employee number, and what areas you're allowed to access. The signature is cryptographic, meaning it's virtually impossible to forge. When you present this card at a warehouse, the gate scanner doesn't need to call back to the central office to check if it's real. It can verify the digital signature right there on the spot. It's self-contained and trustworthy. That's a JWT. It's a secure token that carries your identity information. And what about that central office that issues these passes? In the tech world, we call this the Authentication Center. Let's refine our metaphor. Think of it like a visa center for international travel. If you want to visit multiple countries, you don't go to each country's border and try to convince them to let you in. That would be chaotic. Instead, you go to the respective embassies or a central visa processing center beforehand. You provide your passport, fill out forms, and prove your identity. They then issue you a visa, which is a stamp of approval. When you arrive at the border, the immigration officer sees the visa and knows that a trusted authority has already vetted you. The Authentication Center in a digital system works just like that. It's the single trusted source of truth for your identity. It issues the visas, the tokens that other services will trust. This brings us to the core insight of today's discussion. In a modern, distributed system, identity verification must be centralized and uniform. A distributed system is just a fancy term for a collection of independent services that need to work together, like all those different warehouses or all the apps you use. If you don't have a central authentication authority, what happens? Every single service has to build its own login system. It has to manage its own user database, its own password rules, its own security measures. This is not only a massive duplication of effort, but it's also a security nightmare. Each service becomes a separate island, and if one of them has a weak security system, it creates a vulnerability. A hacker could break into that one weak service and potentially cause damage. It's just not scalable or manageable. Imagine our logistics company again. If each warehouse manager was responsible for creating their own key and lock system, you'd have chaos. One manager might use a simple padlock, while another invests in a complex electronic lock. There would be no consistency. A driver would need a different type of key for every stop, and the head office would have no way of knowing who has access to what across the entire company. It would be an unmanageable mess. That's why centralizing identity is so crucial. By having one system issue and verify identity for everyone, you create a standard. You ensure a consistent level of security across the board, and you make the entire system easier to manage and audit. It's about building a foundation of trust that every part of the system can rely on. So, we've solved the problem of having too many different logins by creating a unified identity. We have one master pass to get into all the warehouses. Fantastic. But this introduces a new, subtle problem. Our unified identity is now incredibly powerful. That one pass, that one set of credentials, is the key to our entire digital kingdom. But in the real world, we don't just have one pass. We have our main login, but then we also have API keys, access tokens for different apps, and other credentials that we use to let services talk to each other on our behalf. Suddenly, we've unified our personal login, but we've created a whole new set of keys for our applications. We've consolidated our identity, but now we have all these powerful digital keys scattered everywhere. Your photo editing app has a key to access your cloud storage. Your calendar app has a key to read your emails. Your smart home assistant has keys to control your lights and thermostat. We've gone from having too many personal passwords to having too many application keys. And if these keys are not managed properly, if they're left lying around in different places, it can lead to a whole new set of troubles. What happens when these keys get lost or stolen? That's a story for our next episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. We've unraveled the login labyrinth and explored the power of unified identity. It's a fundamental concept that makes our digital world more convenient and secure. But as we've just seen, every solution can introduce new challenges. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next episode, where we'll tackle the problem of having too many scattered keys. Until then, stay curious, and thanks for watching.